There's a verse in 1 Thessalonians that changed the way I understood Christian living. Paul writes, "Aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands." It's such a simple instruction, yet it touches on something deeply countercultural in our world today. We live in an age of constant commentary, where everyone has an opinion about everyone else's life, and we're encouraged to share those opinions freely and frequently. But God's word calls us to something different. It calls us to focus inward before we focus outward. It calls us to tend our own gardens before we critique someone else's. And today, we're going to explore what the Bible really says about minding your business, why it matters spiritually, and how it can transform not just your relationships, but your entire walk with God. So, settle in, take a deep breath, and let's dive into this together. Part 1, the foundation. What does it mean to mind your business? When we talk about minding your business, we're not talking about becoming cold, detached, or uncaring toward others. This isn't about building walls or refusing to help when someone genuinely needs it. What we're talking about is the biblical principle of focusing on your own responsibilities, your own spiritual growth, and your own calling before you turn your attention to correcting, critiquing, or managing someone else's life. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 11 through 12, Paul writes, "Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders and so that you will not be dependent on anybody." Notice what Paul is saying here. He's making it your ambition, your goal, your aspiration to live quietly and mind your own business. This isn't presented as a passive suggestion, it's an active pursuit. You're supposed to work toward this as a spiritual discipline. And look at the result. When you mind your own business and focus on your own work, your life wins the respect of outsiders. People notice there's something attractive about a person who isn't constantly in everyone else's affairs, who isn't stirring up drama or spreading opinions about matters that don't concern them. Point 2, the problem of busybodies. The Bible doesn't just encourage us to mind our business, it explicitly warns against the opposite, being a busybody. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 11, Paul addresses a problem in the church. "We hear that some among you are idle and disruptive. They are not busy, they are busybodies." Notice the play on words here. These people aren't busy with their own responsibilities. Instead, they're busybodies, occupied with everyone else's business. They're not working on their own spiritual growth, their own calling, their own responsibilities. They're spending their time and energy focused on what everyone else is doing. And Paul addresses this directly. In verse 12, he says, "Such people we command and urge in the Lord Jesus Christ to settle down and earn the food they eat." The solution to being a busybody is to settle down, to focus on your own work, to take care of your own responsibilities. When you're truly busy with what God has called you to do, you don't have time to be a busybody in other people's lives. Think about it this way. If you're building a business, raising children, cultivating your marriage, serving in your church, maintaining your home, and pursuing your own spiritual growth, when exactly would you have time to micromanage someone else's life? The busybody is often someone who has neglected their own garden and now spends their time critiquing everyone else's landscaping. Part 3, the plank in your own eye. One of Jesus' most memorable teachings speaks directly to this issue. In Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 through 5, he says, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." This is such a vivid image. Picture someone with a massive wooden beam sticking out of their eye, trying to remove a tiny speck of dust from someone else's eye. It's absurd. It's comical. And yet, this is exactly what we do when we focus on other people's faults while ignoring our own. Jesus isn't saying we should never help others or speak truth into their lives. Notice he says, "First, take the plank out of your own eye. Then, you'll see clearly to help your brother." The issue is the order of operations. You've got to deal with your own stuff first. When you're constantly focused on what everyone else is doing wrong, it's often because you're avoiding looking at your own life. It's easier to critique someone else's parenting than to examine your own. It's easier to gossip about someone else's financial decisions than to face your own debt. It's easier to judge someone else's spiritual walk than to honestly assess your own relationship with God. The call to mind your business is really a call to self-examination first. Do the hard work of looking at your own life, your own heart, your own motives before you turn your attention to someone else. Part 4. Proverbs on meddling and gossip. The book of Proverbs is filled with wisdom about staying out of matters that don't concern you. Proverbs 26:17 says, "Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel, not their own." Have you ever tried to grab a dog by the ears when it's agitated? You're going to get bitten. The dog didn't ask for your intervention, and now you've put yourself in harm's way for no good reason. That's what happens when you insert yourself into conflicts that aren't yours to resolve. Proverbs 23 tells us, "It is to one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel." There's honor in staying out of unnecessary conflicts. There's wisdom in knowing when something isn't your battle to fight. And then there's Proverbs 20:19, which connects meddling with gossip. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. The person who can't mind their own business is often the same person who's spreading everyone else's business. They're gathering information, forming opinions, and sharing those opinions with anyone who will listen. Proverbs 11:13 adds, "A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret." When you mind your business, you become trustworthy. People know they can confide in you without it becoming community knowledge. Part 5. Bearing your own load. Galatians chapter 6 gives us important nuance on this topic. Verse 2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." But then verse 5 says, "For each one should carry their own load." Is this a contradiction? Not at all. The Greek words are different. In verse 2, burdens refers to heavy, crushing weights that are too much for one person to bear alone. These are crises, tragedies, overwhelming circumstances where people genuinely need help. But in verse 5, load refers to the normal responsibilities each person is meant to carry. It's your backpack, your daily tasks, your personal accountability. Every soldier carries their own pack. You don't expect someone else to carry it for you. The application here is crucial. Mind your business doesn't mean refusing to help when someone has a genuine burden. But it does mean not taking on responsibilities that rightfully belong to someone else, and not trying to manage aspects of their life that they're perfectly capable of managing themselves. Some people need help, others need space. Wisdom knows the difference. When you're constantly trying to manage other people's normal daily responsibilities, you're actually hindering their growth. You're treating an adult's backpack like it's a crushing burden when they're perfectly capable of carrying it themselves. And in the process, you're neglecting your own load. Part 6. The root of busybody behavior. Let's get honest about why we struggle to mind our own business. What's really driving busybody behavior? Often, it's insecurity. When we feel inadequate in our own lives, focusing on someone else's problems makes us feel better by comparison. At least I'm not as bad as them. At least I wouldn't handle it that way. It's a false sense of superiority that temporarily masks our own insecurities. Sometimes it's avoidance. Looking at someone else's mess means we don't have to look at our own. It's easier to be concerned about your sister's parenting than to address the issues in your own home. It's easier to critique your co-worker's performance than to improve your own. Sometimes it's pride. We genuinely believe we know better. We think our way is the right way, and if only everyone would listen to us, their lives would improve. But this perspective lacks humility. Proverbs 26:12 warns, "Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them." And sometimes, honestly, it's boredom. We don't have enough happening in our own lives, so we fill the void with other people's drama. We're not busy with our own purpose, so we become busybodies in others' purposes. Whatever the root cause, the solution is the same. Turn your focus inward. Deal with your own heart issues. Pursue your own calling. Mind your own business. Bishop Part 7. The freedom of boundaries. Here's something powerful. When you learn to mind your business, you give yourself permission to set healthy boundaries. You realize you're not responsible for everyone's emotional state, everyone's decisions, or everyone's outcomes. This is freedom. This is peace. You're not responsible for fixing your adult sibling's financial situation. You're not responsible for managing your friend's relationship. You're not responsible for making sure your coworker learns lessons you think they need to learn. You're responsible for your own walk with God, your own character development, your own obedience to what He's called you to do. Boundaries don't make you unkind, they make you healthy, and they actually position you to be more helpful when genuine needs arise because you haven't exhausted yourself trying to fix things that weren't yours to fix in the first place. Jesus Himself modeled boundaries. In Luke chapter 12, someone in the crowd said to Him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Even Jesus, the Son of God, recognized when something wasn't His business to handle. If Jesus could set boundaries and decline to involve Himself in certain matters, you have permission to do the same. Part 8. The Peace of a Quiet Life. Let's return to that phrase from 1 Thessalonians, aspire to live quietly. There's something so countercultural about this in our age of constant noise, constant opinions, constant commentary. A quiet life doesn't mean a boring life. It means a focused life. It means you're not constantly stirred up by everyone else's drama. You're not constantly anxious about situations you can't control. You're not constantly exhausted from trying to manage things that aren't yours to manage. Psalm 131, 1-2 captures this beautifully. My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. But I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Notice what David is saying. He doesn't concern himself with matters beyond his scope. He's learned to quiet himself. And the result is contentment. When you mind your business, you experience a peace that busybodies never know. Your mental and emotional energy isn't scattered across a dozen situations you can't control. It's focused on what God has actually placed in your hands. Part 9. When to speak up. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Does minding your business mean you never speak truth, never offer wisdom, never intervene when you see someone heading toward disaster? No, but there are wise ways to do this. First, examine your motives. Are you speaking up because you genuinely love this person and want their good? Or are you speaking up because you love being right? Are you speaking truth in love, or are you speaking your opinion in judgment? Second, consider your relationship. Do you have relational equity with this person? Have you earned the right to speak into their life? Proverbs 27:6 says, "Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." If you're not a friend, your wounds won't be trusted. Third, ask yourself, is this person asking for my input? Are they seeking wisdom, or am I forcing my opinions on them unsolicited? There's a big difference between answering a question and volunteering commentary. Fourth, pray first. James 1:19 tells us, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Before you say anything, have you listened? Have you prayed? Have you sought God's wisdom? And finally, speak once and let it go. Proverbs 26:11 says, "As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly." If you've spoken truth in love and the person doesn't receive it, repeating yourself won't help. At that point, you commit them to prayer and mind your business. Part 10. Focus on your assignment. Every believer has an assignment from God. You have gifts, calling, responsibilities, and a sphere of influence that's uniquely yours. When you're focused on your assignment, you don't have bandwidth to micromanage everyone else's. Paul understood this. In Philippians 3:13-14, he writes, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." One thing I do, that's focus, that's discipline, that's understanding your assignment and pursuing it with everything you have. What has God called you to do? What gifts has He given you? What doors has He opened? What responsibilities has He placed in your hands? That's your business. That's where your attention belongs. When you're truly pursuing your God-given assignment, You won't have time to obsess over what everyone else is or isn't doing. You'll be too busy running your own race. Be Psalm 11, the witness of your life. Remember what Paul said in 1 Thessalonians? When you mind your own business and focus on your work, your life wins the respect of outsiders. There's something powerful about this. The world is watching how Christians live. And honestly, they're tired of Christians who are all talk and criticism with no substance to back it up. They're tired of believers who are quick to point out everyone else's sin, but slow to address their own. But when people see a Christian who's focused, disciplined, hardworking, and not constantly stirring up drama or spreading gossip, that's attractive. That's compelling. That's a witness. Matthew 5:16 tells us, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Your good deeds, not your good opinions about everyone else's deeds. Your life is your sermon. How you conduct yourself, how you handle your responsibilities, how you treat people, how you work, how you speak. These things preach louder than any words you could say. Mind your business, do excellent work, live with integrity, and let your life be the testimony. Part 12. The discipline of silence. There's a discipline that's almost lost in our culture. The discipline of keeping your mouth shut when you have an opinion but no obligation to share it. Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is say nothing at all. You don't have to weigh in on every situation. You don't have to share every observation. You don't have to voice every criticism that crosses your mind. Ecclesiastes 3:7 reminds us there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Wisdom knows the difference. Think about how much trouble could be avoided if we all practiced more silence. How much gossip would die in our mouths if we simply refused to pass it on. How many conflicts would be avoided if we didn't feel compelled to voice every opinion. James 3:5-6 warns us. The tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. Your tongue has power, use it wisely, and sometimes the wisest use is silence. Be Me Part 13, Trusting God with Other People. Here's a truth that will set you free. You're not the Holy Spirit in anyone else's life. That's God's job, not yours. Romans 14:4 asks, "Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master servants stand or fall. And they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand." Other people answer to God, not to you. They're His servants, not yours. And He's able to guide them, correct them, teach them, and grow them without your intervention. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you trust God to do His work in their lives in His timing. It means you pray for them instead of trying to control them. It means you focus on your own obedience and let God handle theirs. This is hard, especially when it's someone you love. You see them making choices you believe are wrong, and you want to step in and fix it. But unless God has specifically called you to speak into that situation, your job is to pray, love them, and trust God. He's better at changing hearts than you are anyway. Part 14. The practical application. So how do we actually live this out? Let's get practical. First, before you speak into someone's situation, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If you can't answer yes to all 3, keep quiet. Second, when you're tempted to gossip or share your opinion about someone else's life, redirect that energy. Pray for them instead. Take that mental energy and use it to examine your own life. Third, work on your own stuff. Really work on it. Get serious about your own spiritual growth, your own character development, your own calling. Stay busy with your own assignment. Fourth, practice celebration. When you hear about someone else's success or see them making good decisions, celebrate it. Don't critique it. Don't compare yourself. Don't try to offer unsolicited advice on how they could do it better. Just celebrate. Fifth, set boundaries. It's okay to say, "That's not my situation to speak into." It's okay to say, "I'm not comfortable discussing this." It's okay to remove yourself from gossip sessions or drama-filled conversations. And sixth, check your heart regularly. Ask God to reveal if you're slipping into busybody behavior. Ask Him to show you if pride, insecurity, or avoidance is driving your focus on other people's lives. It's part 15, the blessing of minding your business. When you truly embrace this principle, you'll discover some incredible blessings. You'll experience more peace. Your mind won't be cluttered with everyone else's drama. Your emotional energy won't be drained by situations you can't control. You'll have better relationships. People will trust you more because they know you're not going to gossip about them. They'll respect you more because you respect boundaries. You'll be more productive. All that energy you were spending on other people's business can now be directed toward your own goals, your own growth, your own calling. You'll grow spiritually. When you focus on your own walk with God instead of critiquing everyone else's, you actually make progress. You deal with your own sin, you develop your own character, you deepen your own relationship with Him. You'll be more helpful when genuine needs arise. Because you haven't exhausted yourself trying to fix things that weren't yours to fix, you actually have energy and wisdom to offer when someone truly needs support. And ultimately, you'll glorify God more. Your life will reflect the character of Christ, humble, focused, purposeful, and concerned with obedience to the Father rather than managing everyone else. Minding your business is not about being cold, uncaring, or disconnected. It's about being focused, wise, and healthy. It's about recognizing what's yours to steward and what's God's to handle in someone else's life. It's about the humility to say, I don't have to have an opinion about everything. It's about the discipline to say, this isn't my battle to fight. It's about the wisdom to say, my energy is better spent on my own growth than on critiquing someone else's journey. It's about trusting God enough to let Him be God in other people's lives while you focus on your own obedience. As we close, I want to leave you with this. What would your life look like if you truly focused all your energy on what God has called you to do? What would change if you stopped spending mental and emotional energy on situations that aren't yours to manage? What peace might you experience? What progress might you make? What relationships might improve? What assignments might you finally complete? The call to mind your business is really an invitation to a more focused, more peaceful, more purposeful life. It's an invitation to run your race instead of critiquing everyone else's. It's an invitation to tend your own garden instead of judging everyone else's landscaping. So, here's your challenge. For the next week, commit to minding your business. When you're tempted to gossip, stop. When you want to offer unsolicited advice, pause. When you find yourself critiquing someone else's choices, redirect that energy to examining your own. Work on your own stuff. Pursue your own calling, deal with your own character issues, and watch what God does in your life when you give Him that space to work. Remember, aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders. That's not just good advice, that's a pathway to peace, purpose, and spiritual maturity. May you have the wisdom to know what's your business and what's not. May you have the discipline to focus on your own walk with God. And may you have the peace that comes from trusting God to be God in everyone's life, including your own.